Hello and welcome to the only podcast that has, in the last month, both started and now stopped writing the Acolyte Law and Order spin-off series. I'm Luke.
I'm Max.
I'm Matt.
And this is Force for Thought. Well, dreams come and go, I guess, in terms of Star Wars spin-off series, and Law and Order will not be making it out of production because he died. That sucked.
Unless it's a prequel, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
I cannot believe we were joking last week about how they brought in all these red shirt Jedi so that the stranger could kill a good number of them, and then he just kills everyone anyway, in addition to all these randos.
Yeah.
Let's just get right into it. That fight, I mean, because of the nature of the show, for better or worse, usually for worse in my opinion, but it just sort of ends episodes and then the next week we just get dropped right into the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to bother with any pretenses of a structure if the show won't either. So the fight scene, it was amazing.
Yeah,
There
it
was
really
like
was.
several different times when two different people were fighting. We now know it's Chimere. And I was like, wow, this is a fantastic fight scene. And then something else happens, and then it's a different fantastic fight scene.
Yep. It's funny how the past couple of weeks, we've just jumped into these episodes because we're really excited about something. I was like, yes, we now obviously people who are watching this, presumably, or listening to this, presumably have watched it as well. But yes, Chimera is indeed the master, as the entire internet suspected as well, I guess.
Not the master per se. He's that guy. He might be an apprentice himself.
He's that guy.
I mean, they call him that's
Do they
the
call
master.
him the master?
Yeah, right? Isn't that the whole...
They called him your master, like when referring to
yeah,
May,
so he's the
but
master.
He might have a master,
There's
though.
still
He's not necessarily the
Yeah.
Sith master.
Yeah, there's
That's
still
true.
someone above him. There was a lot of... All right. There's so many things I need to talk about.
I know.
But sticking with the choreography first, the
Yeah,
choreography was amazing. I feel like it finally did live up to the hype. They were really hyping up in the run-up to the show a lot of the choreography. And
Were
up
they?
until...
I didn't
yeah.
know that.
And up until this episode, I was kind of like, yeah, it's good. Like, it certainly
Mhm.
wasn't bad, but I was like, it's not like blowing me away until this episode. But
Chimeras-
all of the
yeah.
action in this episode actually blew me away.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me to watch a fight scene and believe it when it's one person with a lightsaber in this instance, but any handheld or even gun or anything. But in a 1v more than 3
Yeah.
and make it believable and good. But they did it in this episode. I thought Chimere more than held his own in a realistic way to actually fight these 6 Jedi at once.
I mean, his fighting style is super different from anything we've seen before too, which is great. It's really brutal. I mean, I know
his fighting style was very different, and Jackie's was also very different, and I really liked
Rip
that.
to a real one, another real one.
I
you got
really
your
liked Jackie.
You got
as
your
much as I liked
Skywalker
Yord.
figures. You got your Yord figures. You got your Jackie figures.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad?
I don't know why Jackie's death was so satisfying, though. Just the way she died. Not the fact that she did die. I like Jackie.
yes,
She's probably my
yes.
favorite. But I don't know. When he pulled out that second lightsaber and then just did that quick 3 stabs, that was...
Well, Max, you had a great point when we were watching. Was the fact that Chimere the entire time knows he has that ability to have 2 sabers, and when Jackie does, it feels like an oh shit moment where that's so cool. But
Yeah.
really, in hindsight, it's just like he's basically toying with her because he knows he can win at any moment, and he just saves it for the last little bit. It's that kill. It's it's the perfect moment. It's great.
Wow, I want to say Princess Bride, but I'm going to feel like an idiot if it's not, when he's like fighting and he's like, well, I got a confession to make. I'm actually right-handed. And then they keep going.
Yeah.
And then after a while, he's like, I also have a confession to make. And then he also switches hands. He's like, I'm also right-handed. That's what it felt like. When Jackie got the 2 lightsabers, it was like, oh shit, it's going down. And then at the end, he also pulled it out and you're like, oh, well, what the fuck?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. But yeah,
yeah.
rip Jackie, rip Yord. Wow, rip everyone. That was...
You just want to talk about the helmet and just the ability to...
Yeah, this dude came in ready to counter the Jedi strong. I don't know what kind of spell or technology he had in that helmet, but it countered lightsabers.
Yeah.
It countered the stun gun. I mean, it was awesome.
Oh my
And they
God.
did a good job of like showing you that without having to explain it.
Yes.
I wonder
The
if
headbutt.
that's going to be something that a lot of people are going to be confused by, but honestly, I loved it. I thought it was cool. In the middle of the episode, I was like, this is going to be the next helmet I buy. It's the second Cybercraft posts this online.
I assume we're gonna get a bit more lore eventually, presumably something into that, which will be super fun to explore and see if it is a spell, if it is a certain material or something as well.
Or even if they don't explain it, quite frankly, I feel like we got enough of it that I'm not questioning it. That's not like a question that I need answered. I have a lot of questions from the show still that definitely need answered, but that wasn't one of them.
This is going to drive me crazy because it's going to be all over the internet for the whole week, and I'm so close to remembering it. But in the book Master and Apprentice, there is, I want to say it's called Cordis Shield, but that's the guy from House of the Dragon that I've been kind of watching, so maybe not. But it does exactly this. It stuns lightsabers, and when you it's a shield, and when you strike it with a lightsaber, your lightsaber gets stunned. I can't remember exactly how it works or exactly what it's called, or
I think you're right though. It does start with a C. I know what was this in?
Master and Apprentice, a book?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
Did you read it?
Yeah, no, I did not read it, but I know what you're talking about. Yes, that I think this is maybe just the first live action version then that we've seen of it.
Yeah, and it was so cool.
So cool. Because it takes you back for a second. I mean, you get some red shirts instantly trying to figure out what's going on, which is a great introduction to it. And then it's used multiple times throughout the rest of the episode. And I don't know, it's great. I mean, do you want to talk about the reveal of Chimera? Do you want to go in another direction? But I thought the reveal was, we all knew it was coming. We all kind of assumed. I mean, those are some pretty muscular arms. And we're like, well, that makes sense because Chimera is also on this island and everything. And we were talking about how great the casting was as well. He specifically is able to turn into that doofy guy, like he's falling over things, and it's very obvious, you know.
He keeps turning it on and off.
But he's able to turn on and off, and that is super cynical and super creepy, and like in a character that we haven't really seen in Star Wars as a villain, I don't think. You know, we have Thrawn, who is so different from other villains that we've seen. He's very stoic, and he obviously can throw down, but he's very stoic versus Darth Vader, who's very brash, and the same thing with Kylo Ren. But then being able to see Chimera be able to be very mentally manipulative, like very upfront about it, basically, is super interesting to see. And then, you know, he has the skills to back it up, which is great. And the helmet's cool. It's freaky. He's very, I don't know, he's very sleek, and man, he's secretly like a brute, I guess, which is scarier, I think, to me than versus like Darth Vader, which I can't, the most iconic villain of all time. I can't say that, I guess, but
he's very evil, obviously, and like no one's gonna sit here and try to justify like, oh well, from his point of view. No, he's evil through and through. He's a Sith, and I still didn't really believe it. He killed Jecki, a character I really, really liked up to this point, and I was like, wow, that's such a bummer. Let's see what he has to say about it. And then Soul says her name, and he says, oh, was that its name? And it's like, oh. I audibly gasped twice because we went and rewatched that scene. Yeah. That has got to be one of the hardest lines in all of Star Wars. That is so vicious.
Because it just has the racism built in. Like, it's like, oh. I mean, right? What else would you? I mean, what else would you call that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and
just very.
It's hard to come up with a word. Yeah, kind of extreme.
Dehumanizing is indeed a better
speciesizing though.
Yes.
She wasn't human. Well, she's half human.
I think that's with Jecki and when Yord. A lot of complaints, I think we're talking about the characters not being able to be built up as much, right? And it's like, oh well, that's why they aren't really built up, is because they spoiler, they are red shirts, I guess. In the end, they're 5 episodes in, and if this is going to be a multiple season show, they're going to be a speck of dust in the story, in a larger story as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I never had any problem with the amount of character for those characters that we got, because it's an ensemble cast, and so I knew that there was going to be a lot of characters, and you're going to spend some time more with others.
Sure.
Right, and Yord did the most with the least, so to speak.
I think it's one of those things where
if you really analyze it like Luke has.
Like, Jecki and Yord are cool characters, I don't think for what they were, but what they could have been, and now that they're dead, it's like, oh, now their purpose is cemented, which is interesting to me, because, like, again, I was looking, when Jecki died, I was like, oh shit, not because I liked her so much from the past 4 episodes because she had a bunch of screen time, but because she seems like a cool character. I'm excited to see where she goes. And it turns out nowhere. 3 holes in the chest.
3 holes in the chest. That was so cool. We've seen a lot of people die by lightsaber and in lightsaber fights, and the creators of the show really took an effort to make the coolest death of characters from a fight like this. Like, it's like it sounds
they were surprising.
Smooth brain, where it's like, you know what's cooler than getting stabbed in the chest? Getting stabbed 3 times. But then Yord getting his neck snapped was so sad.
Yes.
And I also gasped at that, not just because I really like Yord, because that was just so shocking.
Well, because it was effortless too. I mean, he was able to do it without his lightsaber, and it was like kind of nothing to him.
And that's and Yord, even earlier in the episode, talks about how he doesn't follow any of the rules. He's never seen anything like it. And that's the thing, is Yord is such a rule follower that, like, he just, I think when he gets his back up against him, he thinks he's gonna push him off, and then they're gonna rebattle like how you normally would. But instead, he just goes for the kill instantly. And I don't think a thought went through Yord's mind as like, this is gonna be the end, because no sabers were drawn at that moment. So that is definitely not by the books.
Did they just pump steroids into Manny Jacinto this day of filming, or has he been wearing very baggy clothes this whole series?
Baggy clothes, because
'Cause
he's jacked in The Good Place
he
as
looks
well.
really, really good in this
Yeah.
episode, and I did not notice anything about him in the first 4.
He's very skinny ripped, which I was gonna point out when Matt was
Mhm.
talking about how he's like a brute. It's like
Yeah.
he's not a brute though. Like he's like a little like he's all over the place.
He's like a meth
Like I
head.
feel like Kylo Ren is a brute. Like
Yeah.
he's like built like a
He's a
tank.
secret brute, though. That's what I mean. Yeah.
And then this guy is just I don't know. Like something about his scrawniness is like even freakier to me for some reason. Like when you're seeing the shots of the helmet, like the helmet looks a little too big for his body, and
Yes.
you're like,
Well,
I don't know. It feels like very ghost-like.
It
almost.
feels more relatable. It's like if I just start smoking, I could look like that. I don't want to start lifting. There's no way I could look like Adam Driver.
It's a more achievable look for the
Yeah.
wannabe baddies.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
All right, as much as we love all of the fight scenes, all of the character development that happened in this episode, there was also some of my least favorite parts of the Acolyte in this episode.
Okay.
And first and foremost, I think I'm excited to see how jarring it was for other people, because it really took us out of it when May and Osha had their scene together. And
Yeah.
May stuns Soul, and it's like they're going to have a scene. And I even said something. I was like, oh, now they get to be alone together, and I'm very excited for
Yes.
this. And then it was a hard cut to an exterior shot, and I said, oh, never mind. What a bummer. And then it just get right back to that same scene, but from a different angle and different lighting. And Matt, you said it was a reshoot. But
it looked like a different set.
Yeah.
I think it was a completely different
It-
setting.
It has
every
to be a
single
reshoot.
movie and show does reshoots, though, and I never noticed. This was so much more egregious than that.
I assume this is something that where the sets are built, and then they had to take them down, and they're like, "Oh shit, what do we do?" And I'm sure they just were like, "Let's build something real quick." That's a path.
But
Like
when
Max
they do something
said.
like that, can't they use the volume and green screen it or something?
Yeah,
like,
my
to
mind
match
could not
what
no
was
reconcile
idea.
inside?
that for such a high-profile, high-budget show to make such a
but
seemingly simple mistake.
but what a mistake it was. Like it just felt so weird. Like I guarantee they were like, "Well, we can't shoot it this way because there's nothing on the other side." Because the characters are reversed as well, and where they should be. Like Luke said, they broke the 180 rule. But it's like I guarantee they were like, "Oh shit!" Like she can't be coming on from this side because there's the path leading this way, and there's only. I feel like it was a last minute shoot or something. And then we are
That was
also
such a substantial scene, though. It's not like
I
they had to
agree.
add it in at the last minute.
Well,
like, oh, we forgot to
I
have our
ass-
two main characters interact.
Yeah,
Like,
the most important part, arguably, of the episode.
I don't, but they could have though, and the whole ending could have been a little different. Because honestly, from that point on, it didn't. We had such a great episode that it ended. It ended with a bit of a fizzle, right? Like in comparison to what we just witnessed, like Chimera going up to the fake May, who was actually Osha, was a fine way to end the episode, but it wasn't my favorite part, right?
none
That
of
part
the
I
episodes
didn't.
have ended in a very particularly good way in
Yes.
my mind.
And to be honest, it could have ended with, even though it was 20 minutes long, a whole episode. Most, it says it's 34, but the rest of it was 6 minutes of credits. So it was 20 minutes long, and honestly, it could have been a perfect 25-minute episode if you just cut the scenes after. If she gets stunned, that would have been a great way to start the next episode, I guess. I mean, they get the reveal that she's. I know you. I'm gonna die on that hill. Then the next episode, the cold open is when she swaps place and they take off, and then the Acolyte shows up, and then you just have the next episode. Because it was so powerful and so good. I just feel like it had to have been a reshoot, and then all of a sudden, randomly, I think Luke, maybe you pointed this out too, is that Osha ends up having a scar on her, or a wound rather,
Mhm.
like she got stabbed by May's blades, but we never see May's blades, and I assume that was the true ending. Something happened in the middle that we just didn't see, and they cut it for timing or something.
Yeah, because I said that when we were watching it, when Soul woke up and he found who is actually May, but he thinks it's Osha, and he said,
Yeah.
"Where's May?" And she said, "She's gone," or whatever.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Well, where is she actually, though? Because we didn't see her." So apparently, off camera, she stabbed her, presumably, and then Chimera found her, healed
guess.
her, and we believe that Chimera knows that that's Osha because
Yeah.
he was trying to kill May the whole time. So maybe he's going to try to convince Osha to be his pupil, to be his acolyte instead of May.
Also, would it, in that scenario where they were standing, they're feet away from where Soul is.
He was stunned.
Yeah, he was stunned, but she just didn't. I don't know.
That's enough for me.
I don't know. That's a
Even
ballsy
though
move.
May tanked the stun and got up very quickly, Chimera literally tanked a stun, didn't get knocked out at all.
Oh, he had
no.
the helmet and the gauntlets, and that helps. I don't know, Luke. I agree with what you said. I've been a pretty staunch defender of the Acolyte, and I still am. But this one definitely, this episode has the highest highs and the lowest lows for me.
Yes, and the other low that I wanted to get to, as much as I love all of the fight choreography, when Chimere takes off his robe and throws it at Soul, that was like I thought he was gonna shout pocket sand. Like, what am I watching all of a sudden?
That was, that I thought of that too.
That was a good
should have
misdirect. I thought it
been-
was cool. I don't know.
That
You
should
like
have been
that?
I liked
edited.
it.
I
They
think
could
it's-
have he could have just force pushed him at the same time as force pulling OSHA
But
or
he's
something.
using his resources. I thought that was cool. We never really see that. It's like, yeah, why not use the stupid robes?
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
It was done in a weird way, yes.
I think it
but
was
he's
the
a weird
editing.
guy,
Yeah.
Chimere.
I think it was just edited a little too long for what it was, because it's like off camera, Soul's just like fumbling around with this robe for a second longer than it really should be, which is just like kind of like a slap it away type thing. If they could have somehow edited that to take place within like a quick second where it's like blink and you miss it type thing, it could be cool. But
To be fair, if you're a Jedi and someone throws a robe at you, would you not also be shocked? Like, what the fuck was that?
yeah, you'd be thrown
You don't
off a
even have
little
to add the
bit.
Jedi to it. Yeah, I mean, anytime, in any situation, no matter who I am, if I get a robe thrown at me, it will daze me. But it was like hitting Double B in one of the Batman Arkham games, and he just got stunned.
That's hilarious, Luke. This is the editing in this episode does remind me a little bit of in college. Max and I had a web show that we wrote and started to film and never finished, called Adults in Training. And we had this wonderful editor, wonderful guy. I will not name his name, and I doubt he'll ever listen to this. But he was going to show us our first cut, and he's clearly rushing. And we watched the first cut in the first 30 seconds, and you hear us say action. He just clearly forgot to edit that out.
Oof.
And he was asking if we could do it in sepia as a flashback. And it feels the editing isn't that tough, but it feels like he could have edited some of these scenes. They're like, oh, let's give the AE a crack at it.
So I've heard a lot of people complain, like genuine complaints about some of the writing and acting and everything like that. And like, as I'm hearing these complaints, I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of see what you're getting at.
Mhm.
Like, I kind of agree with you. I just disagreed with the extent to which it kind of bothered me.
Yeah.
This is the first time where I've watched it and it's bothered me as I'm watching it. The
Yeah.
editing specifically, and then that scene with OSHA and May. And I don't know if it's writing or acting. I kind of want to say it's acting because I don't get this with any of the other characters.
Hmm.
So I think it's the acting maybe was a little weird.
In that
And maybe it's
scene?
because they're not acting with anyone, because it's herself and she's like acting to no one. I don't know.
I mean, she's got to be acting to a double.
Yeah, but
I've said this before. You can listen to the other episodes, but I don't love Amanda Steinberg. Is that her name? Steinberg?
Stenberg, something like that. Yeah.
I'm not I like her in the show better. I think maybe I've said that in the first episode, because I'm not a fan of hers for other things I've seen her in. I think she's doing a good job portraying OSHA and May separately, but like you said, maybe together it's got to be insanely hard as well. And I know it just feels like I'm shitting, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but it's not that bad. I mean,
No.
like I said, I've never been taken out of it until this episode. This was the first time where I'm kind of like, something here isn't
think-
right. And I think part of it too is it might also be the writing, because it's a reshoot and we don't know what they changed.
Allegedly a reshoot.
It's
There's
just-
more to this story.
Well,
than
I
just
don't know
that.
what it
But
is though.
Everything has reshoots, and I've never felt this way.
But the writing has more than just like dialogue. Like, it also has to do with like just exposition and motivations.
That's the biggest.
I'm
thing,
still
problem,
kind of confused because like a lot of people, I think maybe rightfully now in hindsight, for episode 4, pointed out the sudden 180 where she's like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to turn myself into the Jedi.
Mhm.
And again, I was like, okay, yeah, that is weird, but we don't know her motivations yet, so let's just wait a second. And now it's a whole other episode, and I'm like, I still don't quite know what's going on. I feel like at this point something should be done, but I
Yeah.
don't quite know. So like, again, I'm still holding off. Like, we still have 3 more episodes to go, which is crazy. Like, halfway through this episode, I was like, where are they going with the rest of the series?
Yeah.
So obviously I'm going to wait and see to reserve my final judgment, but I am starting to get a little nervous that we're not going to find out a whole lot about the motivations behind OSHA, or I'm sorry, May. I keep getting them mixed up.
It's
And
That's
it's
okay.
gonna,
it's
That's
gonna be more
understandable.
confusing. Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
and it might be a problem for me with this show, kind of like Reva was with Kenobi, because I love Obi-Wan Kenobi accept the parts with Reva, and part of it is because of that. Like her character,
Just
like
no
the
motivation.
motivations. It's like why? But why are you doing this? Like it doesn't really make that much sense.
I think it's gonna be weird. I think we're gonna find out a bit more, right? Because Soul was like, "I'm gonna tell you," and then he gets stunned instantly. But now we have May and Soul together, so I assume we're gonna see their perspectives, which are gonna be vastly different.
Yeah.
May's perspective is gonna be different. Soul's perspective is gonna be different. Stumbling over my words. But another thing is, I feel like it might just be the fact that the entire time in the flashbacks that we've seen of May, she just wants to be with her sister. She just wants to be a twin, and she just wants to follow in the footsteps of where she is guided to with being a witch. And I think Osha doesn't want to be told what to do, and in a weird way, I know that Osha's the good person, right, in this story, but then in a weird way, she is the driving force that all May wants is to be a twin and basically best buds with Osha, and then Osha is just fighting against it a little bit. So that might be the motivation. But I agree with you. The motivation aspect of the writing, again, it's very few shows blow me away writing wise. I can maybe name 5, and that's it.
Andor
is literally one of them. Yeah, it's like Andor, Succession,
Which is almost
Mad
a shame
Men, Breaking
because
Bad.
everything is held up to that standard now in Star Wars,
And it's impossible.
like that is a high bar.
I mean, if I named my top 10 favorite shows, realistically, the actual good writing is maybe in 4 of them. Like, it's like I like other things that aren't necessarily the most fleshed out or whatever. It's like I love the show Dexter. Is that a great show? Not really, especially on rewatch. Like the first couple seasons are actually really quality, but then after that it dips down.
The John Lithgow season though is
the Trinity
10
Killer
out of
one.
10.
It's so good, yes. But even like season 3 dips down a little bit too. But it's like,
Oh, but that one has Jimmy Smits.
it does have Jimmy Smits, who I love. Jimmy Smits. Who doesn't love Jimmy Smits? He's in Sons of Anarchy. He's in West Wing.
Speaking of bad writing,
Star Wars.
Oh, is he?
that's Belladonna. Sorry, fuck. I fell for it. Speaking of bad writing, Lauren and I just started watching Suits the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, I think, kind of
Which is
in that
what?
vein. It's in that vein where I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, this is like a really fun show, but
Yes.
the writing is terrible.
Yes. Hey, Max. Characters welcome. This USA. Yes, it is one of those shows, right? Too. It's like it's not very. The writing isn't great, but it's so. We're holding every show to the standard of Andor, but at the same time we are getting weird, almost the complete opposite. Like everything doesn't need to be that, but it also shouldn't be Lizzo Jack Black episode of Mandalorian writing wise.
It was not that bad of writing. That was
Writing-
again a lot of
it-
lore stuff. And
It was
Luke,
pretty bad.
Literally, Lizzo's line is like, "I will not forgive you now, but maybe one day I will." Okay, I will see you later. Like that is like almost an exact line as Christopher Lloyd walks away. It's like, what was
there's
that?
a lot to like in that episode, but
There is.
we're not gonna get into
No.
it too much.
The battle droid running, I 1000% agree. But I mean, but like we shouldn't have
It's
to.
more than that too.
Yes, but that's a highlight for sure. Come on, yeah. All right, but then
Super battle droid running.
yeah. So, but I don't think we should hide the same thing with Kenobi and Reva. We shouldn't hold everything to the standard of Andor, but we also shouldn't stoop that low, and we should actually give characters
Yeah, it still needs to
motivation.
make sense.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
and that's kind of the problem with Reva, and we'll see. Again, I'm not making final judgment, but I am kind of starting to get a little bit worried. But I do also, I really want to talk about this now, because it's been a hot topic online, and now it's really going to be a hot topic because Chimere called himself a Sith. To me, that's the biggest reveal of the episode.
Yeah.
We all kind of knew going into it that it was almost certainly going to be Chimere. We think there may be a master above him. I think there's almost certainly a master above him now that we know he's a
Really?
Sith, that he said that. Yeah, because I feel like
yeah,
there's
that
got
does
to
make sense.
there's got to be some sort of like lineage to Palpatine. Maybe it's Plagueis. I don't know. I mean, Legends isn't canon, so they can do whatever they
his
want with
master
ages.
is surely someone we know, someone else we know then, like Vernestra or Mother Coral.
But a lot of people were saying online that they think it's Tenebrous, who was Plagueis's master, but I don't know if they're going to stick
Oh,
that closely
man.
to Legends or not. I would be very surprised if they did. But because they called him a Sith, like I feel like there is like I don't know, like a family tree to the Sith. Like I
Yeah.
feel like there is like a descendancy of that. I don't think he's just a random Sith that has popped up and then somewhere else Plagueis is also popping
Yeah, you
up.
don't just
and
pick it up.
Palpatine's plocking up. So I think we are going to probably get some sort of reveal of a master, and I'm really curious. I'd be surprised at this point if we don't. And also, now that we have it confirmed that it's a Sith, we do need to rectify that with Ki-Adi-Mundi's line in The Phantom Menace, where he says that the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. Not because that line needs to be true. That line was always false. And in the movie itself, we knew that line was false. But Ki-Adi-Mundi himself needs to at least believe that to be true,
Mhm.
or have it be confirmed that he's part of some sort of elaborate cover-up, which I don't think they're going to do.
I assume Soul's
Oh.
gonna die.
No, elaborate cover up seems
But
so.
he's on the ship with May. I mean, presumably he's going to call the Jedi Council right now and say, hey, we just lost, there's 9 of them, 8 people, or
Or
7 people.
Or Vanestra is really bad, and she's gonna be the one. She's already
She'll
covering
cover it
things
up.
up. Yeah. So it's either
That's true. It
Vanestra
could
is
be.
bad, or Soul dies and doesn't get to make that call.
Was
I think it's
Holden
gonna be
there?
Soul-
Holden wasn't
Soul-
there. It could be Holden.
Oh, the other Jedi Master.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a lot of people.
That'd be crazy to rely on that character though.
I mean, I wouldn't be that surprised
To
if next
define-
episode
Because they barely mentioned her in one episode. And then-
Yes.
Yeah.
Soul's the only Jedi that knows about the Sith because everyone else died, and
He's the only
Osha,
one.
but
Yeah.
it's really May. I mean, and Soul
Oof.
loves covering stuff up already. He wants to cover up what happened on Brendock 15 years ago. I wouldn't be surprised if they ask him what happens, and he just like shrugs. And then they ask Osha, and she's May, and he's I'm not going to say either.
No way do you lose 7 Jedi in one mission. And they just go, what happened? He's like, dude,
No,
it was
he's-
wild. I don't know, man.
I'm simplifying it, but he'll not tell him. He'll hide it.
I
He'll
agree with
cover it
Luke.
up.
There is a distinct possibility that is more sad than him dying is the fact of him not learning his lesson, him covering up what happened on Brendock, than him covering this up again, which is the true downfall. Maybe Soul,
That would
who
be
you-
like a super tragic story.
yes,
Yeah.
who you think you're rooting for the entire time, but realistically is the literal downfall for all the events that we see in the future.
Which makes sense for what they're trying to set up, which is like blurring the lines and like the good guys are bad and the bad guys are good. And
Yeah.
like,
The good guys are bad. They're not blurring the line of the bad guy being good. Chimera
That's
is
true.
bad.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, I guess I meant more so May, because May started as the antagonist and
yes.
now she's kind of moving more towards the pro. But
I-
yeah, that line, I'm again 3 episodes. I'm going to see how it plays out, but I'm very, very curious now.
There's also something that that Chimera says he knows the darkness that Soul has. So he has to still be tied to something on Brendock, right?
That was such a good line. What was the line? Did any of you write it down?
What?
I've-
I've
when-
made my peace. I did.
With
write
it,
that
yeah.
down.
I'm gonna let
Eh,
Luke say it verbatim.
I've accepted my darkness. What have you done with yours?
Yeah.
That's we or at least Matt and I
Yeah.
comments on how good of a line that was, and yeah, Soul is definitely the key. I want to go back to what you guys were talking about, good writing, because it's really kind of blowing my mind. Star Wars is not a well-written series, almost ever.
Mhm.
I think Andor is very well written,
Yes.
and The Last Jedi is very well written. Beyond that, I don't know if I would praise the writing of any other Star Wars piece of content. I know that's a big statement.
no,
but
I know
broad
what you mean.
strokes.
Yeah,
And so I don't want to like give a pass for this for
Yeah.
not having quote unquote good writing. But I am starting to like the writing less because of what Max was saying. Like last episode, May did a 180 and was like, "No, I'm gonna go turn myself into the Jedi." And then this episode, she changed her mind, which is fair because Chimera was attacking her and she found out it's Chimera, and that's traumatic and she's scared now. But then she pretends to be Osha and escapes with Soul, which is another 180,
Yeah.
but separate from last week's, but separate from where she was at the beginning of this episode. And
Yeah.
it's just,
I think
it's like the nature of this being a mystery. It's not like, oh, I wonder what the characters are going to do next.
Yes.
It's like, I wonder what the creators are going to
Yes.
tell me the characters are going to do all of a sudden.
yes, I think that's her
That's a really good way of putting
her
it.
being able to her realizing that Osha is going to turn her in. I think is the 180 where she said, "Well, fuck you, I'm going to go do my own thing." With that being said, we don't have the emotional connection, or we don't understand that besides that one scene, which is a leap that you have to do, which is way too far of a leap for what they're giving.
The emotional connection, the one scene being the wonky one where May and Osha interact.
Yeah, I assume that's the only
I know,
reason.
being
But
5 episodes in
Yes.
on a series centered around twin sisters, we should really have more
Yeah.
information on their relationship or anything, more development on it.
because unless it's revealed at the end, but at the same time, like you guys were saying, it's like it's getting a little weird. Like if there's nothing next episode, if you have 8 episodes, you don't find out why. I guess rewatchability, but then if you don't find out why, what's driving these characters together or apart, it's really going to be weird to rewatch it
I mean,
and be
we
like, oh,
certainly will.
interesting.
We still have 3 episodes, and
Yeah.
we've only had 5 episodes so far, and we've had most every question answered so far or killed off. And now we have 3 more episodes to go. We have no idea anything that's in these episodes. We've seen, I think, every single piece of the trailer shots already. I mean, don't quote me on that, but I can't think of anything else I'm still waiting to see. That scene of Kelnaka
There's-
fighting Torben on Brendock, but we knew that we were going to get more flashbacks there.
And Vernestra. We do get a Vernestra scene.
Oh my god, I'm so excited for that. You're right.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome.
In what context?
I don't care, but she's going to use a light whip.
I don't want to keep dwelling on this, but she was going to turn herself into the Jedi because she thought she was away from the Master. Like, the whole thing was like, he's going to kill you. And then she was like, oh, he would have to come find me first. And like, there's no way he gets getting into this forest or whatever.
Yeah.
But then at the end, she does get away from the Master when she's with Soul. So as soon as that door shuts to the ship, is she going to be like, hey, Soul, just so you know, I killed everyone. I'm sorry. But why? Like, what changed to her? Nothing changed.
I think the fact that
she saw
found
Soul, but
I think it's the OSHA thing where all she wants in life is to be reconnected with her sister, and her sister was going to turn her in, which is stupid, like you said, because that's exactly what she was going to do anyway. And then, but the fact that her sister is forcing her to go in,
Nice.
nice. I think she was like, I'm now going to fuck everything up
that doesn't
because she's a
okay.
whiny child. Because we see in episode 3, that's the only connection I can make.
I don't want to dwell on it too much, like I said, because it doesn't make sense. But
I know.
it doesn't. It doesn't
we'll
to
learn
me.
more
We'll
in the next,
see. We'll see.
in the next few weeks. Some of the directing choices, I guess, around Chimere, I thought it at the end of last episode, and I didn't even say it because everyone so unanimously loved that scene I saw online. But when it like hard cuts to a different angle and it's him turning his head, it looked jarring to me. And then they did it twice more when he was chasing someone through the forest. I forget who, probably Osha or May. And it like hard cuts to just his face, and it's like, oh, is this in her head? Is he running? And it's just a weird shot. It is very jarring. I don't hate that because the character is very jarring, and that's like a good way to evoke that same emotion out of the audience as you are as in the universe characters. But I just thought that was really weird, and I don't dislike that, but I do dislike, and we already talked about it though, the May Osha scene, how it had the setting up the exterior shot to establish it, even though it was already the literal scene before. And then for that whole first like half the scene, I kept thinking like, oh, is this a dream or something?
Yeah.
Is one of them unconscious?
that's exactly
And then
what I was thinking.
doesn't
too.
seem to be that way.
Yeah.
It was, but then that took me out of it. But still, maybe kind of, and I don't know.
We also saw May cut her hair with a lightsaber. Thought that was fucking rad.
Yeah, that was really cool.
There's a lot. With that being said, there is a lot of cool things in this episode. It's a high of the highs and the low of the lows, and to most of that episode to me was the highs because we find that information out. It's just a huge lightsaber battle. We've never seen realistically this many lightsabers battling in this non gobbledygook looking way like we did in Attack of the Clones. Right? Great. We all love the Coliseum scene, but like this
You've
was
said gobbledygook a few times before on this podcast. I don't mean to insult you. It's been a year, but
Yeah.
that's the most accurate I think you've ever said it. In the Attack of the Clones, that is gobbledygook.
It
They're
is gobbledygook.
literally just swinging around sticks, and
Yes.
and George Lucas is telling them, "Yeah, we'll fix it in post."
do it.
Just add lasers everywhere.
That is gobbledygook, and I agree. This
Yeah.
is incredible fight choreography.
With that being said,
Or
if-
in the sequels where it's just like they're just like swinging what looks like 20 like 100-pound hammers like very slowly, and there's like wailing on each other.
Yeah.
And there's like no real finesse in this.
Yes.
This thing actually had some
And
finesse to
we
it.
not only saw that finessed lightsaber battles, we also got a lot more to it. Again, we saw Chimere's helmet being able to disable lightsabers. We saw multiple people use 2 lightsabers. Like, we not only saw them kind of, I think, perfect what a lightsaber battle could look like, but also they added some twists and turns to it,
Mhm.
which is almost like unfair because they were just like, hey, we're going to give you the thing you finally want to see, but now we're going to add 3 other elements to it. So you're really going to be talking about it all week. But I
That is
just
an okay
also,
problem to have for me.
It is, and I love the settings too. I'm glad we stayed there. I understand why, but it just feels like episodes 4 and 5 should just be one long episode. It just feels like for the fans, like, honestly, give me a 7-episode series if you're gonna have one episode that's an hour long and fucking awesome. Like, it almost feels like that. I mean, I'm glad we waited a week for this episode, but there is something again with. I think there's a bit of a disconnect with creators versus viewers. We've been talking about this almost with every single show, and I think it's still coming out here where you're getting 28-minute episodes. It's like I'd rather just have a 48-minute episode.
Yeah, it's just a
and-
problem with the the format of streaming because this doesn't feel like a TV show. This just feels like a very long movie broken up into smaller parts.
Yes. And that's the thing. Stranger Things, right? That was their exact way to do it. That's exactly how they wrote it. But they did it masterfully.
Because each episode still has like kind of like its own like smaller problems that kind of like has a resolution to it. So every episode is still like satisfying.
Yes.
Whereas this, it's just like, 20 more minutes. We're almost there.
Max, I think you just hit the nail on the head. That's something I've never really put together, but that's exactly what the problem is with a lot of shows that don't succeed, is the fact that they don't have these smaller problems. And I think somebody writes a story overarching that should be a movie. Maybe The Acolyte would be better suited as a movie if it is just this story. Because then
I don't want to wave that flag yet, but I've thought that a couple times.
And God damn it. Maybe, I don't want to, that's a great point, Luke. You don't want to wave that flag, but it's like Kenobi would have been a better movie than it would have been a 6-episode show. Obviously said this, honestly, Book of Boba Fett would have been too, because at least you could have been done with it in 2 hours and not in the week.
God, it was
okay. but Kenobi really would be a way better movie. And at this point in time, like 5 episodes in, I'd be like pretty safe to say it'd be a really great movie to see all this shit kind of happen and go down. Because there isn't smaller problems. God damn, Max, I have to think about that and really marinate on it, because that is like blowing my fucking mind across everything.
Yeah, there's just no reason for this to be a TV show. Like, this is a TV show because they needed a TV show.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's a great idea.
I
like the idea. Exactly. And yeah.
It sucks that we are now living the lie that we hope to dispel, where we wanted to be a positive voice in the community and focus on the good in Star Wars and not hark on the bad. It's just there's so much more to say about the bad because it's more nuanced why we dislike it.
Oh, yeah.
But this is still one of my favorite Star Wars episodes in the last several years. Like, I absolutely love the fight choreography.
Yeah.
It's so far, the series right now is reminding me of The Phantom Menace, where I'm watching it and at times I'm like, this isn't good content.
Yeah.
And then now we just get like one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm like, wow, this show's so good. Give me more.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's for a show that's premised all around the antagonist. I think the antagonist is living up to its part.
Yeah.
Everything that we've seen so far with Chimere, I've absolutely loved. And like
Everything
I
we've
said,
seen with every Jedi, I've loved. And it's May
And
and
the
Osha
Jedi,
that are not
yeah.
carrying their weight in terms of the story and audience enjoyment.
Yes.
exactly. So hopefully we find out more and that can kind of turn around a little bit and it'll start to make a little bit more sense. But everything revolving around Chimere, I've really liked. Like I said, because he's a Sith, I think maybe we'll get some sort of a reveal of a master above him. I know that's already a super popular theory online, and I kind of hope that that's true now. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think that part of the show is really excelling.
Yeah, the fight choreography in this episode and all of the side characters, despite them now being dead, I guess we'll see how it goes going forward.
Mhm.
But Jackie was a fantastic character. I've talked at length about how much I love Yord. Soul and Chimere separately could come out as two of the best characters in all of Star Wars if they keep on the same trajectory that they're on now. And there's so much to love. It's just so much easier to talk about the things that we don't love.
The fight scene is most of the episode, right? And that is, it's hard to distinguish moments besides the major deaths. I mean, we could talk about even when, like, obviously, same thing when Yord picks up his helmet, with the Force, and then it goes to smash it against him, and like that's a sweet scene when they're fighting, and I think Soul Force pushes Chimere into Jackie's saber almost, and he ducks or something. Like, there's so many. It's one
we
big
had
action
Chimere
scene.
force pull someone
Yes.
else into his lightsaber that he'd
Like a
already
skewer.
stabbed.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
But it's
A Jedi kebab.
It's 23 minutes of straight action. It's hard to condense that, and we're literally most of this episode are talking about the last 3 minutes,
Right.
because it's so much easier to focus in on by individual scenes. We're glad the bugs came back. That was awesome. Osha sacrificed Pip, who we know that she really likes. We all fucking love Basil for some reason.
I'm glad Basil's getting more content.
Yeah, every time he's on screen, I'm just like, good for this fucking guy.
And I wonder also, so the show, we have 3 episodes left, right? Basil is on the ship. We know that he's gonna.
With Pip.
Yes, we know that he's gonna make
Oh
the
God,
connection.
May's gonna kill him to hide it. That would suck.
No, I don't think so. I think he's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a tell. I think that's what's gonna give Soul. I think it's gonna be next week's episode is gonna be a flashback episode between the 2 different perspectives. Then at the very end, Basil's gonna give the hint that to Saul. Saul's gonna realize that's not her, and then we're gonna figure out with
Have we seen
Chimere.
Basil communicate yet? He doesn't speak,
He
does
just
he?
screams.
He's
He
just,
just screams.
I mean,
Screeches.
I like
honestly-
to think his signal is gonna be like a toddler. He's just gonna sniff May and be like, "Woo!"
In the
not
world-
good."
What is it, boy? Timmy's in a well?
in the world of R2D2 communicating with other people, I think we'll be fine with the bleeps and bloops.
It is kind of similar to that. That's a language, though. Binary is its own communication system. Is he literally just screeching?
I have no idea.
He could be an animal for all we know. Is he sentient? They gave him something to track, and he tracked it.
He walks on 2 legs.
That doesn't imply sentience, though.
No, but it's like he looks like an otter that's, I don't know, more sentient than an otter.
To change the topic entirely, too.
Yeah, we
don't-
should probably do that,
no one-
actually.
Soul still has no idea what happened to Kelnaka. So he's going to,
If
like,
he's
get on
alive
the
or
ship.
dead, you mean?
Yeah, he's going to get on the ship, and he's going to be, like, calling into the High Council, and he's going to be like, oh, and I don't know where Kelnaka is. He wasn't home. And Osha's going to be like, no, he was there. He was dead. He's going to be like, how do you know that? Oh,
Cue the
Maybe-
Kirby Enthusiasm music.
yeah.
No, that Kelnaka's lightsaber was in the mix. Maybe.
So you
where
just
did
put it together because... How would you know if that's someone else's lightsaber? Well, because
Did he see
had-
Jackie using 2
she
green
had
lightsabers?
2.
That's how they get around that one.
And also, if you're with somebody on multiple missions, like I know what your phone case looks like. I know what your phone case looks like.
Oh, I would definitely know all my friends' lightsabers by heart.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you would know.
I do know what your lightsaber looks
I was
like.
just
You
about to
put it on
say.
Galaxy's Edge.
Okay, all right. So maybe he's deduced that Kelnaka is also, in fact, dead. Again, so now that's 8 Jedi have died on this mission.
Yes. And Soul
for
is the sole
what?
survivor from the Brendok mission and this mission. I am so excited to see where his character arc goes.
We don't
and we
even
still don't
need-
know anything about him.
What happened on Brendok?
We don't even need Jordan. Was it Law and what did you call it earlier?
Law and Order.
Law and Order, because we can just get the sole survivor.
Oh, that's a good title, too. He is the sole survivor.
It's really depressing though if he doesn't tell anybody. He
How
just
do we
keeps that secret.
How do we have 3 more episodes of this show? I feel like we're going to get 1 more episode of Flashback and...
We're gonna get it's
2 more
'cause
episodes
We're
of
gonna
what?
reveal the real mystery, right? It's gonna be potentially another. We know that the Sith are introduced. It almost is like the show completely just took a 180 because we got one major mystery out of the way, which is who is the Master, it's Chimere, and now we're gonna get. I feel like the mystery of what happened in Brendok, and then we're gonna have one last mystery, which is what's actually going on. Which is there somebody above Chimere? What's going on with the Sith? Same thing with Ki-Adi-Mundi. Like I feel like we're gonna get those answers and a bigger, broader scope, and see if they set up a season 2 or if they do a solo thing where they set it up and we will get answers kind of sprinkled throughout other shows.
We did talked last week about what we thought the internet was going to get mad about for seemingly no reason at all for
Yeah.
episode 4. Our guess was the moths that are attracted to lightsabers.
Mhm.
Hindsight, it was Ki-Adi-Mundi being
Yeah.
quote unquote retconned to
We were
born
pumped about that
around
scene.
this time. I saw this one guy on TikTok, and I wish I had his handle to give him credit, but he did the research and found out where in Legends Ki-Adi-Mundi's age was, where it was told, and it was in a DVD bonus feature for the Phantom Menace that he had to download Windows 98 VM onto his computer, and it took him like a whole day to be able to go through this interactive DVD. And it also says that Plo Koon has a yellow lightsaber, and Ki-Adi-Mundi's a Jedi Knight, not a Master. And it's like, this is not information,
Yeah.
let alone information that we should carry forward into the current canon, or even if we were, that shouldn't be retconned.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, big swing and a miss on what we thought they were going to be mad about. It was
Yeah.
Ki-Adi-Mundi. What
But-
do you guys think for this week? People are going to be mad about.
That scene we
Well,
talked
I
about.
want to know what your thought is, Luke, because you have unknowingly hit the nail on the head every single time, because you really didn't like episode 3, and then when we came into episode 4, you were like, I'm mad that I was as hard as on episode 3 as I was, just because of what the internet had to say about it. And then you proceeded to shit on Ki-Adi-Mundi the entire time. And sure enough, the internet was like, fuck Ki-Adi-Mundi's age. And it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's the hill that we're dying on
That
here?
is-
I just have my finger on the pulse of the internet. It's going to be that cape stun that Chimere did on Soul then.
That was just bad editing. But then he like puts his lightsaber down and he says like, I had my back turned or whatever. And then he puts his lightsaber down, but then he holds a lightsaber to Osha's head, and it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like you can definitely take it back out at this
That's
point.
like that's bad hostage negotiation right there is what that is. Like
Yes.
it's so weird. It's like if he was a cop, he'd be the worst cop of all time. Like what is Soul doing? Be like, oh yeah, he's right. It's like no, he's literally he's not even doing a Jedi mind trick on you. He is just using your dumbness against you. Like, that is so weird.
Yeah.
Exactly. They had a good idea for, May's mission has been to get a Jedi to kill her, or to kill a Jedi without using a weapon, to show the Jedi's hypocrisy and that they are not as holy and mighty as they think they are. They were really close to hammering that point down, but you should not yield right now.
Yeah.
This man is very dangerous and he's not subdued yet.
I was going to say, you can look at it maybe in hindsight if they did what they did on Brendok. Again, we're talking like this is fact, but if they did something bad on Brendok, that soul is iffy. So in every scenario, he is giving up in that sense, and he's to right his wrong. But in this specific scenario, wrong time to right that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It was
that was a lot to say.
it was really cool to see Chimera hold that lightsaber to May's head also.
Yeah.
Like we've
Like a
seen
gun.
people like a gun. It looked badass. We've seen people hold people at lightsaber point, like with it extended, but that just does not have the same gravitas as this scene had.
Yeah.
This looked sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did. And you thought he put her on her knees so hard that you thought that she broke her leg.
That was another.
He's
I don't know
just
if that's
very
editing or
strong.
sound editing. There was a
Audible
lot more of a
crack.
crunch than just bending someone's knee the way it's supposed to bend, so that she is now kneeling.
The Foley artist took the stick of celery and then they cracked it. And
I
then
was
someone
just
watched
gonna-
it and they were like, did they break their leg? And they're like, I don't know, but it sounds good. Just keep
Yeah.
it in. Yeah.
The editor just had full free reign at the end. They're like, we got to move on to episode 6. You got this, right? And then they're like, yeah. They're like, oh, by the way, you have to shot reverse this and make sure this is green screen. And then he just did it all wrong. Or they all did it all wrong.
Do you guys have any last thoughts on this episode before we wrap up?
I like this episode a lot. I think this show.
Me too, and we talked so negatively about it
I
for
know,
a
that's
great
what I'm
part of the
saying.
last hour. I really like it.
It's
Yeah.
great.
A lot of high highs.
Yep, I get more excited every week. I think a big part of it is as well is that we watch it together. It's a lot different experience when you watch it by yourself. I find that with a lot of TV shows, it's just way more entertaining to watch it together. Game of Thrones was so much better watching it with a group of friends. It's more of a communal thing. I think that Star Wars is best to be a communal thing. People bitch about them not being in theaters. Watch it with your friends. If you're watching a show, it's just way more enjoyable. So I think that aspect is great. I'm excited to watch it by myself and kind of re-review it when we do our maybe overarching thoughts. And one last thing, we talked a lot about last week about other people bitching about things online. Something else that I kind of forgot to say, which I hope this is kind of implied, but we're not trying to sway anybody's mind to like this show. We just are saying our opinion, where I think a lot of people who dislike something are actively trying to get people who like things to dislike them. It's like, we know there's a lot of holes in all things, but we just enjoy things. So we're not trying to convince anybody to like the show, which is just our opinion of us enjoying things.
Yeah, it's really making me really think all of my fandom in general, because it's like the prequels and a lot of the original trilogy, the writing is not good, but I like these characters and I like the situations they're in, and I like Jedi and I like the lightsabers. And there's so much like that in The Acolyte, and that's why I'm having such a good time every week.
It's a good time.
We're only 5 episodes in. They still might stick the landing, and we will change our mind on a lot of these things that we're saying.
In worst case scenario, it's like really fun to look at and sit back, and it's like, it is. We're having a blast with the show, I think.
Max, any final thoughts?
Nope,
2 enthusiastic thumbs up. We'll see you next week.
I agree with
Reach out to us on social medias, on TikTok and YouTube and Twitter. And thanks for listening.
Yeah. See you, Sammy.
We forgot to talk about Taco Bell again.
Fuck! The worst Taco Bell we've had. Edit this in now.
The nachos were not good.
They were horrible.